So hello, this is Karen from the College of St. Rose Online Learning Services, and I'm going to discuss how to do group work in an asynchronous class. The one thing to remember is that asynchronous classes can be very transformative and informative to the students. You can achieve the same level of work in an asynchronous online class as you can in a face-to-face or asynchronous online class. It's just how you design your course. It's how you structure the assignments and your presentation on the learning management system. In our case, we're using Canvas. So as you can see, I'm sharing with you a document that gives a few guidelines. The important feature is that you create discussion boards in a way in which students can interact with each other. And there are certain best practices when doing that. You want to prep the students at the beginning of the class to let them know what is expected of them. So you would have at the beginning of your class a page in your modules that explain what the group work activity that's coming up will be and what roles there will be, and how it's going to, how many groups will be formed and all those details, so that they know right at the beginning of class that they have a task ahead of them that will be clearly explained to them. So here are some pointers. The asynchronous class should have a page at the very beginning. So in that page, you want to inform them of how many groups you will be creating, how many people will be in the group, how the groups will be formed, if students are going to stay in those groups for the entire class or if they will be switched up with different assignments, how long one particular group work activity will last, whether it's going to be 1 week or 4 weeks, and the role of each person in that group. After you have that information in your first module, along with your syllabus, you can then prep them the week ahead, again, with a reminder. In some courses, instructors, especially asynchronous courses, instructors like to have an introductory page for that unit and then a summary page at the end of that unit to discuss with the students how things went, what points were brought up, if the instructor noticed any gaps in the people's learning. So having a preliminary page and a summary page in your modules, each module, which is a different topic area, is a good idea, because in that prep page, you can prep them for the group work in that module. In the summary page, you can prep them for the next activity that's coming up in the next module. So what you're essentially doing is giving them information in different locations and at different times. Here's an example. A biology class will have peer monitored discussions on specific topics in modules 3 through 7. It will stretch over 4 weeks. Each student will have the chance to monitor one discussion in their group. The class of 20 is divided into 5 groups of 4 by the instructor. The role of monitor will be rotated among the 4 students in each group, and the monitor must create the discussion stimulus in their post. So you would give them the power to create a post board, or you would already assign that group to a post board. And then that monitor, the student who plays the role of monitor, will then check that their group members have participated. So this is what the instructor would do. Includes a group work roles and procedures paragraph in their syllabus or underneath their syllabus in the first module. Then remind the students of the coming work activity in module 2, which is the module before that activity begins. They're prepping them and saying, next week we're going to do this, so remember. And then in the introductory page of Unit 4, you'll have all the information. The instructor explains the roles and the procedures. Then at the end of Unit 4, there's a summary page saying, this week's discussion was great. I noticed that people brought up this point and that point. Now we're going to discuss this next topic next next week, so be prepared for that. And then the instructor would do that for each of the 4 weeks that group work activity was happening. And then at the end of Unit 7, after the 4 weeks of discussion, monitoring, and lively debate, the instructor would have a summary page saying, this group work activity has brought up many points. People were confused about this topic, but I was very impressed with how informed people were on that topic. And I really liked the questions that you presented. This prep and summary gives presence to the class. The instructor is writing in I statements. I noticed this, I noticed that. I noticed you did this, you did that. That gives a lot of presence to the class in an asynchronous environment. So you want to use first and second person when you're writing your intro and summary pages. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to show you a page or a text that an instructor might write in their prep page to let the students know this is what your roles are. So they would explain the activity and what's going to happen, and then they would give them the roles and the definitions of the roles. For example, the monitor would create the stimulus. The participants must respond to stimuluses with a 2-paragraph primary post, and then they have to respond to 2 of their group mates, so that they've got a discussion going among those 4 people. So that would be an example page of what the instructor has to post in their class. I highly recommend that you have a rubric attached that gives expectations of how their posts should look and what kind of interaction they do. You want to say what an exemplary post is. If it's requesting the student write 2 paragraphs, then you'd say in the rubric, you get 2 points if you have clear insights and in 2 clearly written paragraphs. You'd get 1 point for only doing 1 paragraph or only mentioning a few points, and 0 points for not posting anything at all. So that rubric is something the students can look at and judge their quality of product. They know what they're going to be graded by. Now I'm going to show you one of my classes that has this in it, has this structure in it. Let's see, instructional design. Just a minute, let's try this. It should be, yes, it is this one, okay. You'll see that I have the substantive response rubric attached in my first module, which I labeled syllabus. There is the prep page at the very beginning that has the explanation of what we're going to do later in the semester, so be aware. And then further down, I have my unit introduction page. This is the unit we'll start discussing current topics. It's going to extend over 4 weeks. We'll be discussing this topic this week, and the participants have to write 2-paragraph posts and replies. So that is one of those steps where the instructor is giving information or reminding the students. Then at the end of the unit, you have a unit wrap-up page. And you would say, this week's discussion went well. I was surprised. I really noticed that people had mentioned location of school and size of school student body, because in this context, it was a discussion over the SAMR model, which is the model you assess technology by. That is the end of that unit. And then, of course, at the very end of all 4 weeks, you would have another one that discusses all of the topics that had been in the discussion groups. One thing I also want to show is that learning guides can be very helpful because it helps the students find out how many points they can achieve at a certain point in the class. And I'm gonna try to pull that one up for you. Whoops. Let's close that, okay. So a learning guide is basically a calendar, but it's a very detailed calendar. In the learning guide, you would mention the assignment, or you have specific dates. Some of them would be assignment due dates. Some of them would be dates you should start a project, or a date when a certain concept will be presented in the class. And you would have page numbers. You would have what is it? Oh, paragraph numbers and book reference numbers. This document is intended to be changed every semester, but the rest of the course design can be copied over to the next semester without any changes. A learning guide is the only thing that you would have to change if you appropriately design an online course, because you want to design it to be enduring, and you don't want to have to go in every semester and change every module with new dates and new times and new page numbers. So you would include on the learning guide that information, and that would be the only thing that you have to change. I wanted to point out that on some learning guides, instructors will say, this is a course that you can get a maximum of 100 points. By date 9/16, if you got all of the points so far, you would be at 50 out of 100. So that informs the student of where they are compared to where they should be or could be. We know that students aren't always going to make top grades, but it helps them gauge what their effort has been so far, and if they need to step up or if they're fine with what they're doing. So having you can make this many points out of this many points at this point in the class is good useful information for the students. And that sums up my presentation of asynchronous course design. The last thing I do want to point out is that you can use discussion boards. So, all right. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording now. Okay.